Tonight's power panel to take this on, Democratic strategist Zach Friend, Daily Caller White House correspondent Sagar Enjeti, and President of Real Clear Politics, Tom Bevan. Welcome to all of you.
Thanks, Shannon.
Thanks. We all saw today that the Angel Moms really became center stage there. I want to play a little bit of the reporting on CNN, and then I'll tell you what one of the Angel families had to say.
These are parents of victims who were allegedly killed by undocumented immigrants.
You also have women known as angel moms, mothers who lost children or alleged to have lost children to undocumented immigrants.
And that use of the word alleged did not go over well. One of the families told us tonight, when asked about media outlets that have been claiming this word allegedly killed, quote, "That is extremely insulting and hurtful. The previously deported illegal alien in our case has been convicted and is in prison. Saying allegedly is an effort to discredit our story. They don't want the stories of the Angel families to be told." Now, Sagar, you were there today. This spilled over post press conference. What happened?
Yeah, I saw the Angel Moms actually approach CNN's Jim Acosta, and they took issue with the tone of the question, with what they see is an effort by the press in order to look at the things that are happening on the southern border and disqualify or to push back against the president's rhetoric that there is a national emergency. And to many of them, and I've spoken with some of them, I've met them, to them this is a very personal issue. Their children or their husbands or their spouse were killed by an illegal alien, and so to see that discrediting of their narrative and a policy fix that they think that would work was very upsetting to them.
Yeah, I mean, Zach, how do you address this? Because the left is going to say there isn't an emergency, but to these people, they've suffered tremendous loss. It's very much a real crisis in their lives.
I agree with you, Shannon, and I think that that they deserve all the love and respect that they should be getting right now. I do understand, too, that in some respects what we're seeing here from the executive side is really a reflection of the gridlock on the legislative side. This isn't anything new. The President Trump isn't doing anything new. President Obama also issued similar executive actions. And I think that one of the challenges that we have here is really the precedent setting, both from Obama and Trump and moving forward of whichever the next administration is how willingly they'll be able to do these things for everything from climate change to any other issue.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit more about that coming up, but you make a point here because the president said, listen, many other national emergencies have been declared. Many of them are still in effect right now from several previous presidents, so it's not that it's unique. But NPR says this, their headline, many presidents have declared emergencies, but not like Trump has. They want to differentiate it. This is what they said. About 3/4 of the time, presidents use their emergency power to impose economic sanctions or limit trade with foreign parties. Other declarations have followed terrorist attacks or natural disasters. Now, critics say Trump's declaration is categorically different in that the president is using his power to fund a border wall far bigger and more expensive than Congress was willing to pay for. Then they quote the California Attorney General Javier Becerra saying this is not 9/11, this is not the Iran hostage crisis of 1979. Tom?
Well, Trump is right. This is all going to get hashed out. There's a Joe DeGeneva, well-respected attorney, wrote on a piece in New York Daily News saying Trump is on solid legal ground. There seems to be some consensus that he is on solid legal ground, but Trump's probably right. They probably will go to the Ninth Circuit, and they may not get a good ruling there, and this will be appealed probably all the way to the Supreme Court. So, whether it's different or not, and the nuances of that will all be sorted out in court. But in the meantime, Trump's going to try and move ahead as quickly as he can. This is his issue that he has to deliver on for his base, and he wants to set up this contrast between himself and the Democrats, particularly as he moves into the 2020 campaign.
Yeah, and Zach, we're going to talk about how the Democrats feel about this. I mean, there are those who are out there publicly saying that they would actually tear down the current existing border barriers if they had a chance, if they were elected.
Yeah, I don't actually think that's a particularly helpful discussion. I think that what you're starting to see, though, is people that have a primary voter audience, and then there's going to be a general election voter audience. And we have to remember, by the way, a decent amount of this wall was actually constructed during the Obama administration. Both parties have actually built portions of the wall. I mean, I'm from a border state, and I think that people do feel that there is a value to having border protections. The question, though, sort of on a macro side, is this the highest, best use of the time right now of either Congress or the president to be focusing specifically on this? I think there's agreement that we need comprehensive immigration reform. The question is, do we necessarily need to be spending all this time on this one issue associated with immigration?
When Democrats were in control, they didn't get it done. Republicans in control, they didn't get it done. Sagar, The Atlantic says this. While the president does not need Congress's say-so to declare an emergency, Congress does have the right to override him after the fact with a vote of both houses. House will likely do so, unclear whether enough Republicans in the Senate would join them to do. You cover this. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think that they would have the requisite number of votes, but even if they did, White House officials have made known, on a background purpose, that there would be a significant effort to rebuff any sort of vote, and that if it came down to it, that they would try, or they would at least have a major discussion about vetoing it. But they're not worried at the moment that that is something that is going to happen.
All right, quick final word to you, Tom.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're going to get... One of the things that this does, though, after Trump had got a pretty significant bump after his State of the Union address, which was well received and had a bipartisan message, Trump is back to brawling. And this is certainly going to put the focus back on the split within the Republican caucus. You mentioned Lamar Alexander earlier, and that's not a good thing for Republicans. It's not necessarily a good thing for Trump.
Well, I think he likes to be in the brawling position. That seems where he's most happy and most comfortable. All right, Power Panel, thank you.
President Trump says he is declaring a national emergency to build a border wall because of what he calls an invasion from the south. The president made that declaration official this morning. The president conceding he will be sued, but is predicting success eventually. Chief White House correspondent John Roberts has the story tonight from the North Lawn. Good evening, John.
Brett, good evening to you. White House officials tell Fox News that attorneys spent weeks going through all of the ins and outs of an emergency declaration to make sure that the president would be on solid ground today. Still, he stirred up a hornet's nest. With a stroke of his executive pen, President Trump today invited what may be the biggest challenge to his executive power yet.
We're talking about an invasion of our country with drugs, with human traffickers, with all types of criminals and gangs.
In total, President Trump is looking at $8 billion to build his border wall, $1.37 billion from the DHS appropriation, $601 million from the Treasury Department's forfeiture fund, $2.5 billion from the Pentagon's drug interdiction program, including $2.2 billion that will be reprogrammed from other areas of the Pentagon, and $3.6 billion from the military construction budget. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer and Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi ripped the president for raiding the Pentagon budget to build a wall, in a joint statement saying the president's unlawful declaration over a crisis that does not exist does great violence to our Constitution and makes America less safe, stealing from urgently needed defense funds for the security of our military and our nation. The president today insisted moving the money would not hurt the military.
We had certain funds that are being used at the discretion of generals, at the discretion of the military. Some of them haven't been allocated yet, and some of the generals think that this is more important.
In making his case, President Trump today pointed to dozens of emergency declarations that never drew the type of fire he's receiving. But those declarations weren't used as a way to go around Congress on appropriations. The president also gave his critics more ammunition today when he seemed to indicate the emergency declaration wasn't necessary.
I didn't need to do this, but I'd rather do it much faster. And I don't have to do it for the election. I've already done a lot of wall.
Socialist firebrand Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said she'd introduce legislation to block the president, tweeting, "Joaquin Castro, Texas, and I aren't going to let the president declare a fake national emergency without a fight." A congressional fight may be the least of the president's worries. White House officials, even the president, openly acknowledge their attempt to reprogram military money will land them in court.
They will sue us in the Ninth Circuit, even though it shouldn't be there, and we will possibly get a bad ruling, and then we'll get another bad ruling, and then we'll end up in the Supreme Court, and hopefully we'll get a fair shake, and we'll win in the Supreme Court.
The words had barely escaped the president's lips when the ACLU announced that it would sue the president. And Democrats on the House Democrats in the House Judiciary Committee, today sent a letter to the White House saying that they wanted to investigate the president's emergency declaration and asked the White House to make officials from both here and the Department of Justice available for the hearings. Brett?
More on this with the panel. John Roberts, live on the North Lawn. John, thanks. She may be the darling of many progressive Democrats, but freshman Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is taking enormous criticism from some in her own party and her own state for her role in Amazon's decision to cancel plans for a huge investment in New York. Here's correspondent Doug McElway.
Democrats are often called the party of the big tent, but critics say Amazon's decision to bail on a new headquarters in Queens, New York has exposed the party's other reputation as a circular firing squad.
Why in the world would you celebrate driving 25,000 jobs out of Long Island City? I mean, that is just ridiculous.
Amazon said the average salary for those 25,000 new employees would have exceeded $150,000 per year, bringing in an estimated $27.5 billion in tax revenues over the next 25 years. A windfall, especially considering the state only had to give up $3 billion in tax incentives to entice Amazon. But the increasing leftward anti-business tilt of the party helped poison the deal. One Amazon executive told NBC, quote, "If you talk to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, it's never Amazon."
What this is a celebration of is that everyday people in the community stood up and they wanted a say in what was happening in their own backyard.
Polls found a majority of New Yorkers supported the deal, despite Amazon's non-union policy, even in this union-rich city.
And see what basically we're left with now. The bombed-out cars in our neighborhood. This is not Shangri-La over here. We needed this over here. We needed this.
More traditional Democratic politicians supported it too. Governor Andrew Cuomo fumed, quote, "A small group of politicians put their own narrow political interests above their community."
We wanted to negotiate a better deal. We didn't want to see those on the left, those who are anti-capitalist, completely kill the deal.
It's the latest fissure in a party which is smarting from the controversies of late-term abortion, blackface, and sexual harassment in Virginia, an embarrassing rollout of what some Democrats say is the overly ambitious Green New Deal, and accusations of anti-Semitism within its caucus.
Those controversies are all boxes that President Trump may be checking for later use when his re-election campaign gears up. Brett?
Doug, thank you.